And thank you all for being here. I have to say, one thing is because you're here, all of our jobs are easier down the road. So, Aaron Kania, I'm the district ranger for the Cowish district with the US Forest Service here in Ely, and been here over 5 years now, but 28-year career with a lot of wildfire during that career, mostly all out west with the Bureau of Land Management, but just throughout the whole country. One thing I want to start with, and I left this diagram over on that table, but just something that is really helpful is fire adapted communities. And it's this pie chart, this wheel, and it's something I refer to all the time in my job as how do you wrap your mind around the amount of work that we have to do as communities to make our communities safer. And even just today, there's only 3 of these pies that we're really going to talk about, these pie pieces. That's those 3 there, and it's resident mitigation, which is a lot of the Firewise work, wildfire response, which is what the Forest Service, local fire departments, and the Minnesota DNR do, and the safe evacuation piece. So maybe just something, because the government love acronyms. When Barb said, "Hey, can you come talk?" I'm like, yeah, we can probably talk for days about this. There's a lot to do, but an acronym helps because it boils the whole concept down to one 4-letter word, and that's FDOP. So I know you're all super curious about FDOP. And it's something you've probably never heard of and may never hear again, but it's the Fire Danger Operating Plan. Something that you're all aware of is Smoky Bear. And if you go to the Eagle's Nest, there on 169 on the turnoff, or my office, the DNR office, you see Smoky Bear has his hand out, and it's moderate fire danger, extreme, low. Well, it's the FDOP that informs Smoky Bear on where to point his hand that day. And so for us at the Forest Service, that's really where we're looking on a daily basis. So every morning, all of my firefighters, they get together in our ops room, like good tactical terms. So we get together in the ops room, and the first thing we see is the weather forecast. In that weather forecast, they have indices for all sorts of things, how windy it's going to be, how dry it's going to be, you know, what the fuels are out there. So like how dry are the trees? Because the drier they are, the drier the grass is, the hotter the fire will burn. And so the first thing when you walk in the ops room, it has that forecast. Then all of those numbers on that forecast equate to how active or inactive the fire is going to be that day. And so based on that level, that's where Smokey points his hand. And so if it's going to be a real hot, dry, windy day, well, Smokey's going to be pointing towards extreme. If it's rainy and it's been rainy or there's snow on the ground, then Smokey's pointing to low. So that then guides a whole bunch of other decisions we make in the community. That's why, or why not, there's helicopters and air tankers at the airport. If that forecast is looking like it's going to be bad, we're going to bring a bunch of aircraft into the Ely airport. And so that's where we have the aircraft. Last, what was it, 2023 Memorial Day, when we had that little fire outside of town, and that giant helicopter came in, 2,000-gallon bucket underneath it. Well, it's because of the FDOP. So you can thank the FDOP for that helicopter being here. That's where we're making our decisions. So how that plays into how we're communicating with our other speakers today is in Ely, we have this thing called the Big Six. And it's just an easy way to think about who's working on fire from an agency level. You good?
Might be the battery.
Okay. So the big six is the Minnesota DNR, the Forest Service, Lake County, St. Louis County, City of Ely, and the Morrisville Lake Fire Department. So that's pretty much gonna be the groups that are gonna respond to any fire in this area. And so what we do with the big six is we look at the evacuation plans. And we look at that every spring. We go through those plans, make sure they're up to date, make sure that we know if there's any new people in the mix. And then any changes, just refresh our memories and make sure that we're ready for the season. Sorry, the microphone's a little, can you hear me okay? Okay. So when we do have a fire, I'll use that example, the one on Memorial Day outside of town. Well, that's actually Minnesota DNR, right? So it's on private land. They have the jurisdiction and responsibility for that. But of course, we have a bunch of Forest Service firefighters, we have aircraft, we work together. It really doesn't matter. We're all gonna respond. And then we're gonna use our protocols to figure out who's the incident commander and all of that decision making. But from a land management agency, we don't have jurisdiction or authority for your private residence, you know, the hospital in Ely. Who has that jurisdiction, you'll hear from Brad, is the mayor of Ely. And so that's the person that's gonna make the decision whether there's an evacuation or not. If it's out in the counties, it's the either Lake County Sheriff or St. Louis County Sheriff. But what those people need is they need really good information. And that might not be their specialty, like how wildfires behave. So what we're doing as a wildfire firefighting agency is we're providing that information to the local emergency managers so that they can make good, timely decisions about how to evacuate, where to evacuate, which direction the fire is going. Because if the fire's coming from the south and going to the north and we think it might cross, like say Highway 169, well, you don't wanna send all the people you're evacuating to Tower. Maybe you wanna send them south, right, to a different place. So, you know, thinking about that information and then having good conversations with the local emergency managers, we're really working closely together when those things happen, so. I did get a question coming in about fire restrictions. So that's definitely something that we work together closely on with the DNR, the counties, and even our local Ojibwe bands. And again, that FDOT, looking at the fire weather, fire danger, what we're doing is you know, seeing when it's appropriate to put those fire restrictions in place. Usually it takes a couple days to make the decision, get the word out, and then everybody's aware that it's happening. And so what we're looking at is the weather forecast. And sometimes you can't even plan a picnic around here based on the weather forecast, let alone putting these like major fire restrictions in place a couple days out. So we're really looking at longer term trends. If you remember back in 2021, we're in this long-term drought. And that's when it made a lot of sense to have fire restrictions in place. But what we've seen lately, going back to May 15th, is about every week we've had a little storm and a little bit of moisture and some clouds. And actually that smoke from Canada, looking for a silver lining, that's kind of putting a cap on it here, and that's helping keep our fire danger lower. And so we're really just kind of every day watching that weather forecast and seeing if the weather, the rain doesn't materialize. And if it doesn't, and we get into that longer term drought, then we'll put fire restrictions in place. I have to say, the other thing is people have been really well behaved, and we haven't had any recent escaped campfires. And so I think even out in the boundary waters, people have been having their fires in fire grates. They've been drowning them before they leave them, and have just been thoughtful about when and where to have them. So